Uh, I've had a very difficult life. Um, I was given um, a Dafo card, as so someone's put it to me on Facebook recently, and I've defied all the doctors uh, because they turned around and told my parents when I was a baby that because they diagnosed me with cerebral palsy. Also, I had epilepsy that was caused through the whooping cough injection, which is the equivalent of today's MRI, not MRI, but MR injections, vaccinations for children. Well, my mother decided to get me and my sister um, injected with this whooping cough. It was meant to be a whooping cough injection. And about 6 weeks later, it came out in the newspapers that was causing epilepsy. In those days, they didn't know what the cause of epilepsy was. Uh, but I had it serious enough that it was one convulsion into another, into another, into another, and I nearly died when I was 1 year of age. And I've defied all the doctors because they told my dad in particular that I'd never lead a normal life. I'd never work. I'd never drive. I would never go to mainstream schools, and I proved them all wrong. I'm now 54 years of age and still around to tell the tale. Music has always been a big part of my life, always has been, and right back from the age of 3, we used to stay with my grandparents on a regular basis, who lived in Banstead in Surrey and in Cheam also. And my grandfather had a big keyboard. It was like one of these keyboards you see up churches. And I used to sit with my grandfather, used to going through the different keys of different songs. And bearing in mind, I was only 3, 4 years of age. My grandmother was learning German as a language, and I used to play around with her tape recorder and always singing Amazing Grace also. And my grandmother told my mother on a regular basis that David is, when he gets older, he's going to become a singer because when we used to stay with my grandparents, I used to walk around the record player singing. Bearing in mind, I only started walking from the age of about 2, so it was rather an unusual experience to see me walking at all. But anyway, my grandmother always told my mother, David is going to become a singer when he gets older. When I was 5 years of age, I had a brother, still got a brother, the 3 sisters. At the time, I only had one sister. The 2 other ones came along later when we moved to Bromley. So at the time, there was only 3 of us. It was me, my brother, and my sister. They were both older than me as well. only a couple of years. But anyway, when we moved to Sidcup, we lived there for about 4 years. I was born in Lewisham Hospital, and my parents um, rented this masonette in Lewisham. And anyway, we landed up at Sidcup, and every time my aunts and my family used to come over, my grandmother, my granddad, um, I used to hide behind the curtains, coming out with like an air guitar, singing to my family. So I hope you can all understand how music has always been there in my life. Uh, I've always enjoyed being the centre of attention, even when I was a small child. I can't help it. It's part of this illness. Also, I've been diagnosed recently also with a mild spectrum of autism. So that's got something to do with it as well. Like cerebral palsy, uh, autism, once you've got it for life. But at that time, my parents didn't know. And I was always the centre of attention at school, also at primary school and at senior school. And yeah, my father was a military police officer in his national service days, and my mother was just like a normal, everyday housewife. Uh, but anyway, um, they both worked hard, and at times we did struggle. Um, and we was living near sort of on the lines of poverty. And my mum and dad used to have to watch everything they did as far as the electricity goes, the heating and all that. So I hope you can all see what I'm saying. I've not had the easiest of lives, but that probably goes for thousands of others as well. But I'm just saying, from my um, point of view, um, it has been, it's not been easy, my life. Um, what with the illness as well. But anyway, my parents um, bought my brother's sister this, it was like a record player. It was like a red record player, Fidelity. And what I used to do, I used to sit in the bedroom, regardless of whether I was sharing a bedroom with my brother or on my own. And I used to play the records continuously for hours on end. It was the same token when we lived at Swanee Village. We had the living room and then we had the front room. Um, in the summer, we was in the front room, and in the winter, we used to be in the living room, which was like the room at the back. And but most of the time, I was in the front living room listening to my records, which at the time was Cole Douglas, Susie Quattro, and Brotherhood of Man, ABBA, uh, and of course the late Glenn Campbell. When my vocals really started um, to kick off, was one Christmas. It was around about 1975. I was 8 years of age. I was going to school in Swanee Village, and which was literally 10 minutes away, about 15 minutes walk, because you had to walk through this churchyard, through this field, and then this, well, it's unmade up road, and then through the churchyard, and then through this field, and then I was at school. Um, I personally hated school from start to finish. Couldn't stand it. Um, Always running out the gate, bunking off. Uh, Even with Ravenswood and the music classes, right? Um, just wasn't that into it, to be honest with you. I didn't like the teacher anyway that we had, and he used to give me the creeps. This guy, Mr. House. His name was Mr. House. Those of you that went to Ravenswood between 1978 and 1983, I'm sure you'll all remember him. Okay, I think his name was John House. Yeah, and he had glasses. But he used to do the music classes at Ravenswood, and it just didn't, at the time. I just didn't. Uh, I just wasn't interested at all. I took part in a couple of the Christmas things they did there, but on the whole, I just wasn't interested. Um, my father bought me this album in 1975 because every so often my dad used to take me out on rare occasions, and it was just me and my dad, to cinema and whatever. But this particular Christmas, my father was redundant from the Observer newspaper, and he bought these tickets for the movie Jaws, and it was the first time a film like this came to London. And my dad said to me this Christmas, "Look, I know you don't believe in Father Christmas and all that, and I'm taking you out along with your brother, sister, and your mother to see Jaws Boxing Night. So I've decided to buy you this." And it was Glenn Campbell's 20 Golden Grapes. And from that moment onwards, that's when my voice and my music career, if you like, really started to grab hold. Because as soon as I started listening to this album, I used to sit in the kitchen when everyone was at work, at school, or whatever. We had country fields that looked out onto the back window, and I used to sit there thinking, one of these days, I'm going to be like this Glenn Campbell, right? As soon as I heard his album, I just took a liking to it straight away. That's not the first album that's grabbed me like that, okay? Which I'll explain later on in the interview. What other album that had a big impact on me, okay? But my father, because he knew by then, you know, that I was into Glenn Campbell, and he told me, "Look, I want to pay for you to have guitar lessons, right?" Which never happened. I can't remember why it never happened, okay? But my dad says, "This Glenn Campbell, as hear him playing the guitar, and if you could pick that up, okay, it would be to your advantage tremendously, okay? And but I can't think why uh, we never done it. But anyway, as soon as I heard Glenn Campbell, the album, that's when this all started kicking off. I then went to Ravenswood from, it was around about 1978, and at the time, I didn't really care much for going to school. Anyway, um, anyone that knows me and remembers me at school, they'll know what I'm saying here, yeah. To this day, I don't know because I haven't actually been back there. I've got no reason to either. But to this day, from what I read in the local newspapers, that they've still got the pictures of David Bowie all over the reception area of Ravenswood School. And when he died, I happened to notice all the tributes, the flowers and everything. So I know for a fact that they've still got the pictures of David Bowie when he was at school. Apparently, he was a bit of a sod, to say the least, and I didn't know that much about him. Obviously, you wouldn't, would you? But I just heard some of the stories about him, and that's when the music side to me, as I say, when my voice in particular started for me to be noticed, because even with the school choir, this music teacher just happened to notice about my voice. And where everybody else was into like madness and stuff like that, I was still a bit behind with the modern day times because I was into Glenn Campbell big time. But yeah, when I went to this school at the time, it was Madness, the Electric Light Orchestra, the Specials, and Susie and the Banshees, David Bowie, and one Christmas, it was one Christmas Day night, and my dad said to me, "You want to watch this film?" And it was The Man Who Fell to Earth, and he said, he went to your school. This is that David Bowie. And then that's when I started discovering, and then obviously watching him on Top of the Pops, Ashes to Ashes, and and all those hits he done. That's when I started to appreciate who David Bowie was. My form teacher, I had three form teachers, yeah. But one of my form teachers, well, he was like a supply teacher, also, from what I remember. But his name was not Peter Frampton, but obviously it was Peter Frampton's dad. His name was Mr. Frampton, and yet again, it was only when I started looking into it I realised who Peter Frampton was. Um, I actually contacted Peter Frampton on Twitter about 8 years ago, and I told him that I went to Ravenswood School and I had your dad as my form teacher. But anyway, um, when I left Ravenswood School, it was only after a few years later Um, I was told, and I've been told by former pupils of that school, um, you was different compared to us. That there was something different about you. You wasn't the normal pupil, right? And I've been told that um, continuously. The other thing they've told me is, oh, we remember you at school with singing and all that. Okay, so that just backs up what I've just said. Ravens was also a major starting point for me and my vocals. Um,